Hello and welcome back to the Nasty Metal Production channel here at YouTube, and welcome to another Friday review, where today I will be reviewing the 16th studio album from, well, in name is pretty much classic, one of the most oldest names here in heavy metal. However, in lineup, well, it's definitely a much different lineup. We only have two members here in the band that have a connection to their eras. We have one member who's pretty much a connection to the day the band had reformed back in 2010, whereas one original member here is pretty much, well, a connection to the day it first formed, back all the way in the 1970s. And what I'm referring to is Too Mean to Die from Accept. Again, released through Nuclear Blast on January 29th, but was originally supposed to be released on January 15th, but because of the whole COVID situation and the pressing plant, it halted a lot of the pressing. So again, that's why it got delayed just a week, or at least 2 weeks. It was pushed back to the 29th. But here it is, right here, the 16th studio album from Accept. So, again, what I'm referring to is Mark Chanillo, pretty much the singer since Wolf Hoffman and Peter Baldes and so on, reforming it in 2010 to release Blood of the Nations. And Wolf Hoffman being pretty much the only connection to the past, to of course, the day Accept first formed to begin with. Again, releasing a lot of those classic albums like Restless and Wild and Balls to the Wall. He's at least the only connection, whereas the rest of the members are not really a connection to those classic records. So we have at least another member here being Ululis, who is at least a connection to the last album, being The Rise of Chaos in 2017. So, and again, we've had some of these members. Of course, Christopher Williams, of course, also a connection to The Rise of Chaos as well, being the drummer. Both these two replaced those respective slots. Ululis replacing Herman Frank, again, who had left after Blind Rage, and same goes for drummer Stefan Schwartzman, who left as well after Blind Rage. So Christopher Williams replacing him. However, after The Rise of Chaos, original bass player Peter Baldes decided to leave the band after so many decades. So we finally left the band. Though he said he retired, however, some weeks or so later, I guess a year later, he decided to do some stuff with former Accept singer Udo Dirkschneider. So it's never quite really elaborated on why, but still, what really matters here is that he decided to leave after so many decades, and so he got replaced by Martin Motnick. But besides that, we have now, at this point, it's now become, instead of a 5-piece, it's now a 6-piece, and that's also due to the new guitar player, Philip Schuss. So now, besides Wolf Hoffman and Ululis, we now have Philip Schuss on guitar. So it's now 3 guitar players, so 6 guys now are now on Accept. So now that puts them in the same category as Iron Maiden and Halloween, as now being the third heavy metal band, or at least classic heavy metal band, to now have 6 members in the band, where again, 3 guitar players. So with that, with all these different, with this new lineup and following 2017's The Rise of Chaos, what is now, is there a change in sound? Is there anything different? Well, let's find out. So let's definitely get into the review of Too Mean to Die from Accept. Alright, so before I really get into any of my thoughts on this album, let's do a track listing rundown. We got about at least 11 songs here, and it all clocks in at 52 minutes and 7 seconds. So these 11 songs are Zombie Apocalypse, Too Mean to Die, Overnight Sensation, No One's Master, The Undertaker, Sucks to Be You, Symphony of Pain, The Best Is Yet to Come, How Do We Sleep, Not My Problem, and then finally Samson and Delilah. So there's your 11 songs here. So As far as the album is concerned, well, it's pretty much an Accept album. Besides being at this point a totally new lineup, it sounds no different than any of the other Accept albums that came after at least Blood of the Nation. So it's really, it's another modern day era Accept album. But is it enjoyable? Well, let's find out. Let's definitely begin with the very first track here, which is Zombie Apocalypse, which is at least one of the three to be clocked in around 5 minutes here, but this one clocks in at 5 minutes and 35 seconds. But it's a good opener. Again, it's crunchy, got a lot of those. Again, it's a very good upbeat track. It's at times no different from how Die by the Sword opens up The Rise of Chaos, or at times any of the other songs that would open up some of these modern day era Accept albums. But it's, at least in its construction, it's a fine track. It's a good way to open up the album, but at least as a song on its own, I wouldn't say it ranks there as one of the best. It's a fine song nonetheless. I think one of the things is, and I've seen people complain about the lyrics on this one, because it just sounds like a bunch of old men bitching about modern day technology, basically. Which, again, it kind of began in a way since The Rise of Chaos. I've seen some people say since Blind Rage, but to me, what I've noticed since The Rise of Chaos, I mean, Analog Man really comes to mind. That one, again, bitches more about technology, but this one bitches about technology and how it's just overtaken everyone's lives, which is basically referring to, like, phones and so on. And again, Zombie Apocalypse, well, it's not about zombies. It's used as a metaphor to kind of sum up how they feel about how people are so connected into a lot of this digital stuff. And it definitely sounds like, again, the thing is, people said, it just sounds like a bunch of old men bitching. I don't care. It's, you know, it doesn't bug me. It shouldn't really bug me to begin with, and it really doesn't. But at the same time, it does seem a little bit tongue-in-cheek in some places. It's a little corny. So that's the only thing you could knock this track for. But it's an, at least, but lyrics aside, it's a fine opener, so I'll definitely stop there. Let's definitely move on to the title track, which just comes blazing in. This is why I pretty much said about the title track here. It's a full throttle, furious headbanger. Again, it's at times very similar to some of the more modern day Saxon songs. But again, it wouldn't be too far out of place on any of the other classic Accept albums as well. Or even at times, even Mark Tonillo's former band, TT Quick. It's a straight up headbanging rocker that does great. I like it. So it's really to me, it's actually one of the highlights on this album. So it's a good track. So in a way, pretty much the album gets kicked off with Zombie Apocalypse and Too Mean to Die. So it's pretty much a decent way to really kind of kick the album into gear. But that's when we finally then come into the very third track, which is Overnight Sensation, which, alright, I'm gonna be guilty of. I like this song. It's definitely a catchy, commercial kind of track. Again, in the same vein as songs like Up to the Limit or Midnight Mover or even Don't Go Stealing My Soul Away are. Again, it's that kind of very just straight up catchy melodic riff that at times is very similar to how of AC/DC or so on. It's, again, which has been Accept's formula since the 1980s. So it wouldn't be too far to place on some of those albums, especially Metal Heart. But the thing that a lot of people seem to just like with Zombie Apocalypse, this one really does get ripped apart because of, again, seems to be another song where it's just old men bitching about modern day kids. So in this case, YouTube. I know some are gonna at least go and say, well, you're on YouTube, so you should at least be offended by what they're saying. Listen, I don't completely fit the qualities of what they're saying in this song. I mean, there's actually, as goofy, as dumb some of the lyrics are in here. I mean, this is what I wrote down. It's a dumb, fun rocker with hooks. Again, that only comes down to at least some of the guitar composition and so on. It's a hooky track. Again, like I've stated, it sounds like it would fit on Metal Heart. But the thing is, the lyrics, as stupid they may come off, and people have cherry-picked some of the lyrics on here because, again, apparently it's the only right thing to do, apparently, because we have to complain, oh, what a bunch of boomers. At this point, I think even there it ends up becoming sad because I just see a bunch kids almost, or people my age, just bitching with fucking older people. It's like next gen people complaining about boomer people. It's actually completely sad at this point to me. So I don't care that they bitch about some of this stuff. It doesn't bug me. It doesn't offend me. The fact that it actually offends some people is actually, I think, is kind of insulting in its own way. But again, to each their own. But the thing what I get is with this track, it's some of the stuff on the song, someone said how out of touch they seem to be. But if you ask me, there's actually, from my experience, there's a few people that I know that are on YouTube that actually fit some of these qualities. Now you'll say, well, how dare you say that about anybody? No, that comes from experience. There's obviously, and that goes for other completely topic. But the thing is, as stupid you may find the lyrics, from my point of view, there's some truth to some of it, but at the same time, it just comes down to be a little goofy. Again, it's kind of the same theme of like Analog Man. So, whatever. But at the same time, there is a little bit of piss and vinegar in the lyrics. It's, again, some have said it's like a piss take on the whole YouTube culture, so, in a way. And just surrounding the whole of the whole overall aspects of what tends to be. So, again, again, a lot of people really like the pick apart songs for the sake of it. But for me, it's a dumb fun rocker, and I dig it. Again, I'm one of those who's guilty of really enjoying this song, so that's where I stand with it. Again, everyone can dislike what they dislike. Me, I don't completely dislike the track, so let's definitely move on, because I don't want to go into any of the topics, because again, it will turn this video even to like a 30-minute video, so I don't want to do that. So let's definitely move on to No One's Master, which again, I actually do like this song. It's definitely more of a faster, the thing is, at this point, Accept really seem to really take on a more power metal style structuring. I mean, they've been doing this since, again, it sounds no different than any of the songs off of Blind Rage, or even Stalingrad, or even The Last Down, The Rise of Chaos. It's no different than any of those kind of songs, but it's actually a pretty catchy riff in its own right too, and I do like it. This one is, again, a lot of people seem to also pick apart this song because, again, what they're looking at this song as, they seem to be, oh geez, just a bunch of older people once again complaining about politics. They're complaining about how the media controls everyone. Oh my god, how dare they? Be quite honest, they only took that aspect of it and ran with it. The people who are complaining about this, once again, cherry picking the lyrics just to fit your opinions. It's only a part of the track, but really what it comes down to is basically the more so that does anybody in the world actually have any opinions of themselves? Does anybody have their own personal views? That's kind of the thing, is basically the whole idea is marching to your own beat instead of trying to march to everyone else's beat, is what I think the whole message is. And everybody seems to take it out of context. Because they're older guys. And since most of the people that are complaining about it are almost close to my age. So really, is there even a middle ground in even trying to get any context to begin with? So at this point, I think it becomes a little bit sadder in its own right if you look at that way. And I do. So it's not a terrible track. Far from it. I like it. The lyrics, again, people seem to complain about it, but I think, again, they're looking too much into it instead of taking it what it is. It's not about it's not really about bitching about politics. It's about really, are you really following your own beat, or are you following someone else's beat to begin with in terms of that? So in some cases, that's the way I take it. So that's why they say no one's master, I'm no one's slave. So really, what's wrong with that? Does anybody even, again, once again, you might be fitting those qualities if you're bitching about the lyrics here. So think about that one for there. So there you go. Now let's get on to The Undertaker, which I know, wrestling fan here, though it's not about the wrestler, but it's about what a character The Undertaker can be. So it's not really about the professional wrestler of the same name, but it's kind of a story. However, personally, since this was released back as a single in October, I felt like WWE should have used this as part of the tribute package for the wrestler, but I digress, and I don't want to go any further on there. However, when I did first heard this song, I didn't care for it at first. But listening to the album, when at least a part of it, I was like dreading when the song was going to come on, because again, I didn't like it at all when it first was released. But as far as the album, since I've given this album about 8 listens, and each time it actually grows and grows on me more and more with each listen. It's a slower track. It's actually got an interesting vibe to it. And that's why I've started to really end up appreciating the song for it. It's got an interesting vibe. Now, except I've done most of these slower songs as well. I mean, go back to even to some songs off of like Blood of the Nations and Stalingrad. They had some of the slower songs on there. So it's really no different from there. But it's a fine track on its own. I mean, as part of the album, it breaks up, I would say, in a good way, the pacing of the album, instead of just being one pace to begin with. It kind of breaks it up a bit. So it kind of gives the album a little bit of its own variety. So that's why I appreciate it as well. And again, it flows by faster with each listen. So really, at this point, it's far from the worst song on the album. I've come to really enjoy it. Is it my favorite? No, it isn't. It's not my favorite, but it's a fine song on its own. So that's all I got to say there. Again, this is one of the second of the 3 of the songs here that clocks in around 5 minutes. This one's like, 5 minutes and 38 seconds. So there we go. Finally, let's get to Sucks to Be You, which this was another people apparently seem to really bitch about because of, oh boy, just sounds like a bunch of angry teenagers stuck in an older man's body. I don't know. I think, again, you're just looking at that way. Once again, people seem to really say that they're starting to sound like Anvil at this point, but I think that's almost becomes a bit too harsh. I mean, I love Anvil, but sometimes that, I think, between Wolf Hoffman or Mark Tonillo, or even Deffy, who's Wolf Hoffman's wife, she's been writing most of the lyrics for Accept since the 1980s. I mean, go back to Balls to the Wall. But there at times, I think, are better lyricists than, let's say, Lips is. He can be a little too blunt in some cases, and at times maybe less, I don't want to say smart, but I think choosing the way that they did with this track, it's really, I wouldn't say they come off as bad teenagers. I think that right there is, once again, taking things too much out of context. Because what it is, it's what, the thing is, some of these lyrics with this track in general reminds me of some of the lyrics Motorhead would write, especially Lemmy. Go back to some of the songs off of, like No Class, or some of the songs off of Iron Fist. It's no different. It's just one of those F you kind of lyrics, because of, well, who's you to say on how I'm supposed to live my life, and how do you treat me? How do you keep beating me down? So that's what the whole message is of this song, is basically just telling it like it is to a person who's obviously bullying you for no reason, because again, they think they're smarter than you. That's the whole message. If you have a problem with that, then maybe you've never really lived that kind of, at least you never had those experiences to begin with. I've had those experiences. So if anything, I actually kind of, I get what they're saying here. So again, I actually can relate to some of this. So again, that you might find that adolescent or naive, but I'm sorry, I actually tend to. I mean, it's not rocket science, but not every freaking thing here in the music world has to be freaking rocket science, or has to at least come along as to treat you intelligent. Not everything. Get over yourself. So again, as far as the riff is concerned, it's got a classic sort of almost balls to the wall feel to it. It's again with venomous lyrics. It's a fine track. So there we go. Next up is Sympathy of Pain, which is just a straight ahead driving track that again, in that sort of Priest fashion, I dig this track a lot. So I'll definitely move on there to The Best Is Yet to Come, which at first listen, it didn't do much for me. But again, with each listen though after it, it just grows and grows on me. This is a great ballad. Again, this is actually one of the few of the more, I guess, to some people, the most intelligent thing they've come up with the album. But it's great inspirational lyrics. I think it's a good ballad. I mean, especially Wolf Hoffman, he is no stranger to doing ballads. They've done ballads since the very first record. They've done ballads, and the thing is, it's kind of similar to those kind of ballads off of like the debut album or I'm a Rebel, even Breaker. It's got that same feel to it, and I think it's a fine track. So this would have been one of those kind of songs that Peter Baltes would have sang if he had still been in the band. But I think Mark Chanillo has a great voice. He shows he's got still great freaking range here. So it's a good song. So I really do dig this track a lot. So again, let's definitely move on to How Do We Sleep. Now, this is another one that people seem to really complain about. Once again, I don't know why people really seem to be really offended by everything, I guess, in today's age. Because they have apparently, and also I've seen someone complain about the placing between this track and the track that comes after How Do We Sleep. Because the whole message of this, I mean, as musically, it's actually a very hooky, catchy track. I like the beat of it. It's got a very classic metal feel to it. Again, I do like the song a lot. But the message of the song is really about the whole message is, I'm trying to get this to put this in the best way possible. It seems to really deal with how do we sleep knowing that the whole world is basically turning into a complete disaster. I mean, shit. I can agree with some of this. I mean, I had the same experience with the whole Capitol riot thing. I was asleep when that whole thing completely happened. So once again, it's one of those where I think everybody can relate to it. And the thing is, though, the people that complain about it, I guess just want to complain about everything any old person does. And we gotta just say, oh my god, how a bunch of boomers. Why do you seem to care so much that the world has gone to crap? Well, obviously, I guess you don't think the world has gone to complete crap in some ways. Because obviously 2020 was one of the worst years I think anybody can experience in life. Obviously, so the whole song kind of ends up just speaking to people who obviously feel like everything's just completely been taken away from them. And obviously, how can we sleep at night knowing that stuff like this is happening? So some have taken it completely to heart, that how dare they say stuff, how dare they talk down. Obviously, it's the truth. You may not like it, but I actually agree with some of the lyrics here. Again, but at the same time, you do move along. But let's definitely get to the other track, which is Not My Problem. I've seen one person really hyper up the placing here, is saying like, well, then I guess it really isn't your problem then, if you think the world has gone to crap. Which is taking everything out of context, because of what they were putting this album together. They weren't thinking about, oh geez, is this going to come off as poor taste to put this track here because of the title and because how the lyrics were in the previous track. No, the lyrics for this one is basically, again, the message isn't about how all the stuff that's going on in the world isn't my problem. Instead, what it is, it's about basically people who who you've bailed out for so many years, and instead they just it just seems to be getting into trouble a bit too much. And so basically, the best thing you can do is, well, I'm not going to handle anymore. I'm not going to bail you out. So basically, you're not my problem anymore. That's what the whole message is of this song. It has nothing to do with what the previous track did. Stop looking to things at fucking point blank. It's freaking stupid. So really, the lyrics here have nothing to do with the previous track. Instead, it just sounds, from people who've bailed. If you've had ever a friend, obviously you know how many times it can be tough if the friend who you've, or even a loved one, just seems to just get themselves into too much trouble, and you keep bailing them out, and yet they still don't learn. So you just give up. And so basically, when you get the call, thinking, well, can you bail me out? What can you do? Can you help me? No, sorry, I've done too much for you. You're on your own. That's what the message is. Jesus Christ. So there you go. There's not my problem. And again, it's kind of a class. Let me talk about the musical stuff for this one. I mean, what I've taken from at least the structuring of this track, it's Accept's take on, let's say, a beating around the bush type of boogie track, basically AC/DC. It's kind of that sort of bluesy boogie feel to it. So it's their take on it. It's basically a metal take on that kind of boogie groove of it. And again, it's got a nice groove to it. I like the song, so there you go. So fine track. So finally, let's get to the instrumental, which ends the album, which Accept haven't done an instrumental not since, or at least Wolf Hoffman hasn't done an instrumental track since Death Row. So it's in that sort of same vein. Again, it's Samson and Delilah. But here's what I wanted to kind of bring up, because I was about to forget what the composition for this one, because of this is basically taken to Wolf Hoffman, since he's a big into a lot of the sort of classical stuff. Again, he likes stuff like Bach and so on. He decided to take two classical pieces from artists such as, let me see, try and if I can, without butchering the names here. We got two tracks from Camille Saint-Saëns and Antonian Dvorak. I might have butchered all of that, but the pieces for this is for Samson and Delilah are taken straight from these two pieces are from the New World, from Antonin Dvorak, and from Camille Saint-Saëns is it's called Samson and Delilah. So we took these two tracks and basically combined them into one track. So it's two classical pieces from two different classical artists from centuries ago, and combining them. So it's kind of interesting, and I do think it's an interesting track. Some have thought it's kind of weird that you would end your album like this, but to me, it's actually interesting. It's different, and I think it actually kind of does it's very interesting. That's all I gotta say. I enjoy it. With each listen, I kind of enjoyed it as a ending track. Some have said it would have been placed in the middle. What better song on this album would have been a great ending? Some have said the best is yet to come, but some people would have had a complaint with that one too. So really, it doesn't matter how you place the track listing. It doesn't matter how you do it. Everyone seems to be that they're gonna have a complaint about everything. So really, nothing's perfect. You just take it as it is. So there you go. There is finally my review for Too Mean to Die from Accept. And my rating, now I went back and forth. I went back to my original review for The Rise of Chaos, which is the album that came before this album. And my rating for that album was actually a 9.1 out of 10. That's what I gave it back in August when it came out. So, and since then, I would not give The Rise of Chaos a 9.1. I wouldn't. It would have been an 8. So that's what I'm going to do with this one. I'm giving it a 8.3 out of 10. Because again, I think this is a fine record for what it is. I mean, if you're going into this album expecting anything new, anything different, you obviously are going to be disappointed by this. But for me, who at least somewhat enjoys some of the modern day Accept albums, this one, again, I enjoy it for what it is. Again, I might have nitpicked a lot about the negatives, which is mostly what people have for negatives, and I try to look at it at more of a level-headed approach instead of just hyperboling the crap out of a lot of this. Again, it's nothing new, it's not original, but at the same time, what's the problem there? There really isn't any problem with a band who sticks to what they do. Again, they seem to really do they do good at it anyways. That's what I'm trying to say here. But I will say this: I liked it. But for any of those who at least enjoy the modern day Accept albums, you might like what you'll hear on this album. But if you're looking for something that's going to be the best thing since, let's say again, Blood of the Nations or Stalingrad, you're not going to get that here. You'll be extremely disappointed. But if you haven't even liked any of the Mark Tonillo era Accept albums or any of these modern day era Accept albums to begin with, then obviously this album will not change your mind. It won't. So, and of course, if you're expecting Udo, sorry, that door's been shut a long time ago. So, but if you just enjoy modern day heavy metal albums from like bands like Judas Priest or Saxon, you'll probably like this. You'll probably find something to like about this. So with that, that's all I gotta say there. So I hope all of you enjoyed. It's been released since the 29th. If you have any thoughts on this album, I'm really interested. Again, it's all up to you what you think. I got my personal opinions, but I know all of you have yours. So I'm really interested in what you guys have to say about this album. But until then, I'll see you again next time. This is Heavy Thrasher Sam out, and I'll see you all later. Take care, everyone.